right, welcome to part 3 of teamwork. We're going to talk about effective teams now and some best practices for team meetings and best use of team time. So first, for effective teams, you need to have a clear goal. So what is it that you're trying to accomplish? In your project this quarter, that would probably be what the client's deliverables are, what the client would like you to accomplish, what type of improvement you're hoping to study, or what type of process you're hoping to study, what type of improvement you're hoping to get out of that. So you all have it articulated and communicated what your clear goal is, so that you're all working towards that one goal. And discussion is focused. So when you're in your team meetings, that there's not a lot of chit chat about homework from your calc class, or what you did this weekend, or what the career fair had going on. It's fine to have a little bit of that upfront time getting acquainted, and oftentimes that's built into the agenda, which we can talk about later. But once you get started on the work, you want your discussion to be focused. And actually the agenda for a meeting is a good way to keep the discussion focused. So you usually put agenda items in order of importance and estimate how much time each item will take. Then if you're taking longer than expected for the first agenda item, for example, you can make a determination, do we want to eat into the time of other items we have on the agenda and push the lower priority ones out, or we can handle them differently over email or something like that, or we need to cut it on this discussion and move to the next agenda item. So an agenda is a great way to keep it focused. And I'm not sure if I'll mention it later, but another role for a team member to play is to have someone be the timekeeper. So the agenda is there, we know how much time, and you have someone that's their role to be reminding people, bringing it up to the team that we've allocated 15 minutes and we're at 15 minutes, what do we want to do? Right, so discussion is focused. Another one is all members participate. We talked about this a little bit back in when communications can go awry and different communication behaviors. So you want all members to participate, so you get a good variety of input. You have the experience background of all members to reach the best solution. 2 heads are better than 1, or 3 or 4, or whatever, however big your team is. Then actions and assignments are clear. I cannot emphasize enough how if you leave a team meeting without having future actions documented, what the action is, who is going to complete the action, who's the main person responsible for it, and when it's due, then you most certainly have not had a very effective, or certainly as effective as you could have, team meeting. You always should never leave the meeting before you have, again, the actions defined, assigned to who it's going to be, and a date of when it's going to be completed. And those should be written down, not just verbally said. Maybe sent out in minutes later as well, for people to be able to verify, yes, that is what I said I would do, and the timeline I agreed to do it in. Relaxed atmosphere. So that goes back to starting out with having 5 or 10 minutes of, hey, how is everything going? What'd you do this weekend? Etc. Because you still want to have fun, even though you're getting work done. You still want to have fun. Bring cookies, whatever. And there it is, have fun. And so what is the difference between a team and a group? So have you ever noticed my hat here? See that? So would that indicate that, and by wearing this, am I part of a team or part of a group? And which of the effective team, where's my cursor? Which of the effective team criteria there am I possibly displaying here? So think about that for a minute. You can put it on pause if you want. A team is is a cooperatively functioning group. It has an objective to achieve. It has a goal to achieve. So a basketball team has a goal to win the game, right? A project team has a goal to complete the project according to the criteria and scope that are defined. Versus a group is just a semblance of people, whether virtually or at a meeting or something, with a common belief of some sort or interest. So I would say a group on campus could be the Democrats Club, right? Everyone has those that participates in that group has those kind of beliefs, but the club per se doesn't necessarily have a specific goal or objective in mind at any one point in time. It's just a group of people that have that common interest. Okay, so that's the difference between a team or a group. So I'll go back my hat here. Does that indicate that I'm part of a team or part of a group? And you can let me know what you think about that on your own initiative. Next, we'll go into best practices for team meetings. So it often kind of rankles me, I'll be honest with you, when people say meetings are useless. or a waste of time. And when people say that, what I tell them is, then, well, you've never been in an effective meeting, because they can be very effective if they're run appropriately. So it's a time for team bonding. It could be the fun stuff, like you did in your are having to do to complete your team contract, or it could be that you're just working through a problem within the meeting, so that you're getting closer, everyone's putting their input, etc. So you do have team bonding, the fun stuff, for as a best practice to get to a highly functioning team. And then you have team rules, and we discussed some options of what those might be earlier. It might be that you're going to meet, when you're going to meet, how often you're going to meet, someone's going to put minutes out after it, you're all going for an A B, a C in the project or in the class. And so you're going to put that work in accordingly. Everyone will finish their work before coming. Everyone will be on time. Whatever you want to have for rules, but you have those team rules in place. Then secondly is keeping control within the team meeting. So I already talked about the agenda. I'm not going to go into that anymore. I briefly mentioned the timekeeper is an excellent way to keep the discussion focused and keep everyone on track if you're going to complete the agenda, or agree as a team to move some of the lower importance issues or discussion items to a future meeting or email or something like that. And then the last one is maintain this issues bin or parking lot. So there may be things that come up that are important, but they're not relevant for what's on the agenda for today. And so a good idea is you don't want to lose track of what those items are. So you put them on another slot, another piece of paper, so that you keep track of them in the minutes, so that you don't lose sight of the fact that they are important, but it's not appropriate to discuss them at this time. And then the person who's bringing it up obviously feels that they're heard and knows that that's not going to get lost in the shuffle as things move forward. Solicit everyone's input, so we talked about that in the communication behaviors, and rebond if conflict occurs. On the project that I was on, well, on a couple of different projects, but on one of them, we had a bonding activity, meaning a fun activity every quarter. It was a year, 18-month long project. One time we went to Dave & Buster's, which I mentioned is adult Chuck E. Cheese. One time we went kayaking out on the Back Bay in Newport, which was awesome. And then the food was brought in afterwards. We went to Dave & Buster's again. I'm not remembering any other specific ones, but fun things like that. And then that helps heal the wounds that might come up during a conflict. And then next is team time. So if you use your team time for making decisions, which everyone needs to be present for and have their input in, if you use your team time for brainstorming, because you get everyone's input based on their experiences and backgrounds and ideas, and people usually play off of each other's ideas to come up with something new, to develop the plans of action, which we talked about earlier, and making sure that the actions are assigned and someone there is agreeing to take ownership and the date they're going to be done, which falls into assignments. If that's what you use team time for, then meetings are very effective, because you need everyone there in order to accomplish those things. Individual time is everything else. So if you're completing the work you were supposed to have done prior to the meeting during the team meeting, then you are wasting the team's time, and that's very inconsiderate. And that might be one of the rules that you want to have, that everyone completes their work prior to. Then people during team time have an opportunity to discuss and validate and challenge what those assumptions of that individual time are. All right, and then teamwork skills that you should be thinking about as you go through not only this quarter but forward is cooperation. It doesn't necessarily have to be your way all the time. You need to cooperate and do whoever's way is the best for the team as a whole, for the project as a whole, not sub-optimizing. Coordination, you have to coordinate among, in this example, in this class, 3 or 4 people's time. You have to communicate what's been going on, what the changes are, how data is being collected, what the data means, etc. And then giving adaptability, adapt to the changes that might happen, because there may be a change in scope, there may be a change in direction, there may be a change in the way that the team is going to function to achieve that original scope or objective. So being adaptable to that. And then giving and accepting suggestions or criticism. So we talked about that earlier with constructive feedback as a way to how to effectively do that. And again, all these things, when displayed by especially all the people in the team, will result in a very high functioning team. And then showing team spirit. So there you go. I'm showing team spirit with my little hat that says IE, Cal Poly IE. All right, and then now we're moving on to setting some ground rules. So we already talked a little bit about the types of rules that you might want to have in your teamwork agreement, but what the goals and expectations are. So what the project is trying to accomplish, what is the expectation? Do you want to get an A, B, C, D, meet all the client's deliverables, etc.? Work norms, where are the meetings going to be? Are people allowed to be on their phone and texting, on their computer working on something else other than the current project? Facilitator norms I'll talk about on the next one. Who is going to be the facilitator to kind of coordinate and run the meeting? Is it going to be one person all the time? Is it going to rotate among the people? Communication norms, are you going to text, email, call? Are you going to respond in 5 minutes, in 5 days? Are you going to have meeting minutes? Document action items and keep track of them, that kind of thing. Meeting norms I've kind of covered above. And consideration norms goes back to how are you going to communicate? Who are you going to take turns? How are you going to make decisions? The things that we talked about earlier in communication behaviors and how communication can go awry. So I want to spend just a little bit of time on the facilitation. So why do you have a facilitator or coordinator? Exactly what it says there. If everyone is responsible, no one is. You always need to have the X on someone's forehead to bring an action to closure, and that includes running the meeting effectively. So facilitator coordinator is a good person to do that. And so here are some of the things that the facilitator coordinator does. And this is something that you can assign to one person for the whole quarter, or you can rotate around each week as it would be. So you might want to split some of these things up too. So maybe you have someone who's a timekeeper, someone which is watching the agenda, someone who is monitoring that everyone is paying attention, not paying attention, sorry, that everyone is communicating and participating, and then calling on people who are not, and focusing the conversation over to people who are not from the people who are dominating. Someone who will play devil's advocate, that's suggesting alternatives, so to think outside the box and think differently. So those are things that a facilitator can do, or you can distribute those responsibilities throughout. And summarizing the team decisions, that might be at the physical meeting, that might be sending minutes out afterwards, that type of thing. So what I'd like to sort of close here with is that it's important to lead people, manage the tasks, and facilitate the decisions. So just think about when you have had a job before. Do you like to be micromanaged, like have someone watching over your shoulder telling you exactly how to do it, when to do it, the way to complete the task? That is micromanaging, and you don't want to do that. You want to give people the ability to complete the task in their way, with their creativity, with their unique skill set. So managing the task, the easiest way to do that is just to provide a due date when the task is due and a description of what the deliverable should be, and then let the person responsible, figure out how they're going to do that. They can ask for help, obviously. So that's leading people and managing tasks versus managing the people. And then facilitate decisions. So you want to be able to make sure the group comes to some decision based on the data, not force a decision on anyone or make it be your own, but to facilitate a decision within the team. All right, and this we're not doing in class, so we are not doing it in class, but these are some things that you might want to talk about with your team. We've covered some of these items that we've gone through that you want to be sure that you get them in your team contract. And then here's the teamwork agreement summary, which is also posted as an assignment on PolyLearn, so be sure and check the due date and turn that in when it is due. And you need to give me a paper copy that is signed by all parties. I firmly believe in the power of signature, and that when you are signing that, you are saying that, yes, I agree to abide by those rules. So if you don't agree to what's in the teamwork contract, then make sure that you have a discussion with the team and come up with something that everyone can agree on. All right, and adds another level of accountability. And if you're interested, you can ask me about my experience with that later. And then the summary of teamwork. So we've gone through the introduction to teamwork and the differences between the good and poor communication. That was in probably video 1 and video 2. And the various norms for teams to have the goals, facilitator communication. We just chatted a little bit about that. And then several techniques that will improve the function of the team. So not very many teams are highly effective, highly functioning teams. So I challenge you to be one of the few that is a highly functioning team. Thanks for listening.